might not stay.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
the-
Okay. Yeah, I think that should work. All right. The name of the story is it's a working title. It's Burning Bright in the Dead of Night. It's my attempt at writing a detective noir story with a bit of a twist. I guess they all have twists, so it's just a detective noir story. There we go. A burning sensation between my index and middle finger. I woke up, dropping the almost entirely ashen cigarette to the carpeted floor, the migraine still throbbing. That's going to leave a stain, I thought, looking at the carpet. I'm going to have to rehire Penelope. I had to start planning my apology. I'll use the usual excuse, I thought. You know how it is, sweetheart, I'm just not myself when I drink. It's a lie, of course. I am myself all the time. I flipped the switch on my desk lamp, forgetting it was faulty. A flash of light followed by an electrical outrage. That was what my argument with Penelope was about. I asked her to replace it. What's the budget? She asked. I explained that I can't afford to have a budget. I expected her to figure it out by herself. That's what I pay her for. That's when she decided to bring up the whole pay cut issue. I didn't mean to blow my lid, but I hate it when she tries to steer the conversation to unrelated subjects. I felt around for the pack of smokes on my desk, only to find it empty. I turned it over in my hand, trying to read the labels while my eyes were adjusting to the darkness, as if I might find an extra cigarette hidden in the small print. Smoking may harm your children, the label said. That's not a concern of mine, thankfully. It didn't say smoking may harm other people's children. That's when I first noticed her, with her oversized indigo overcoat and her mismatched stockings right in front of me, the last place I looked. Her back was to me. She was standing on the tips of the toes of her crimson moccasins, trying to reach the shelf where I keep my stationery. Feel right at home, why don't you? I said. Startled, she dropped a beer glass full of pens on the carpet. Sorry, she muttered. Falling to her knees, she set the glass right side up by her side and began collecting the pens and placing them one by one back in it. Clank, clank. The sounds of the pens hitting the inside of the glass echoed in the space, resonating with the piercing pain in my temples. Don't worry about it, I said. My assistant will take care of it if she ever takes her job back. She ignored me, kept collecting the pens. What's your name? I asked. No response. Clank, clank, clank. How did you get in here without me noticing? I asked. Clank, clank. I said, stop it! My voice hit a slightly high register. She stopped, slowly turned her face to me, her lip quivering. Something about her big, glistening eyes, always seeming on the verge of bursting in tears but never do, that made me feel like I'd do anything for her. That's when I noticed what looked like a cigarette burn on her left cheekbone. Who did this to you? I asked. She turned her back to me again, still quiet. Are you not going to talk? I don't speak to strangers, she said. I'm Roman Weiss, I said. There, you know my name. We're no longer strangers. I don't know your name. I just know you said your name is Roman Weiss, she proclaimed. I have to hand it to her. It was pretty sharp for a 5-year-old. The door burst open, letting the night's breeze sending shivers down my back. She stormed in as if carried by the wind, placing herself in the middle of the room between me and the child. Her back to me, that's 2 generations giving me the cold shoulder at the same time in my own office. Are you home? Sorry. Are you all right, honeybean? She asked. The little girl nodded quietly. He didn't scare you, did he? The little girl shook her head. She picked up the girl in her arms and finally turned to me. I hope she wasn't too much trouble, she said. I'm more worried about how much trouble you're going to be, I said. Trouble? Is that how you refer to potential business? She scanned the office in an exaggerated gesture. Explains a lot. Not all potential business, but clearly you're on the run from someone. Why would you say that? Well, I took a deep breath, gearing up towards my retort. Mothers don't usually drag their toddlers around in the middle of the night into strange men's offices unless they're running from someone. I can tell you've been running for a while, since you seem to have developed a habit of entering new rooms very quietly, which is why you entered the room without waking me up. The fact that you left her with a stranger leads me to believe that you think whoever it is you're running from has followed you here. You went out either to confront them or just to walk around the block a couple of times to throw them off the scent of little honeybean. That's the motherly thing to do, especially if they've hurt her before or maybe gave her that little burn under the left eye. I leaned forward on my desk. Am I close? Very impressive, she said. Well then, who is it that you're running from, I asked. I said it's impressive. I didn't say it's correct, she answered. We aren't running from anyone. I don't drag my toddler around in the middle of the night. It's only 6:30. Is it? Did we switch out of daylight savings? I asked. I really wasn't quite entering your office at all, she said. In fact, I was practically screaming in your ear trying to wake you. It's the cheap brand of coffee my assistant bought. Very weak, I explained. I didn't leave her here in order to confront anyone. I'm parked outside at a spot with the first 15 minutes free, thinking I'll be out of your office in time, but after spending 12 minutes trying to wake you up, I had to run out, put money in the meter, she continued. All right, I get the point, I said. The story didn't add up, but I knew better than to exhaust my inquisitive skills outside of a paid gig. And not that it's any of your business, but Regina did that to herself. She got a little too close to her nightlight. Didn't you, honeybean, she said. Perky, the child muttered to herself as the mother hugged her tighter as if to comfort her and quiet her down simultaneously. So who are you and why are you here, I asked. She told me her name was Sandra Pike. She recently divorced Regina's father, Pedro Mellencamp, a big television producer, according to her. I had never heard of him before. I need you for a simple job of a discreet nature, she said. Can you be discreet? I'm guessing you know my reputation, I said. How did you hear about me? I got your name from Linda Bukowski, she said. The old Bukowski case. Linda hired me to tail her cheating husband. I didn't find the evidence she wanted, but that was because the day I tailed him, Mr. Bukowski ended his own life speeding into a busy intersection. When I delivered her the sad news, she gave me a handsome bonus. I later had to return it since it seemed to have raised suspicions in the local police's investigation of alleged foul play involved in the accident. The case has since been closed. I've been meaning to call her up and see if I could ask for the bonus back, but I wasn't sure she'll remember me. It now seemed like she did remember me, fondly enough to recommend my services. What did she tell you about me, I asked. That you're very cheap, Sandra said. That's my main concern right now. Well, it depends on the job. My fee could be anywhere between $150 and $250 a day, I said. Linda said I should be able to haggle you down to $80, she said. Thank you, Mrs. Bukowski, I thought. Sandra needed me to sit in the car, act like a loving boyfriend while she collects the alimony check from Pedro. He insists on handling it in person, hoping he could still talk her out of the separation. She thought that if she could put on a show, she could convince him it's absolutely over between them. Not exactly an investigative job, but I took it. I figured that's the easiest $70 I'm ever going to make. It went more smoothly than expected. Turns out I'm better at playing the lovey-dovey significant other than Penny ever gave me credit. At least as long as I only need to keep appearances up for half an hour. If Pedro would have known we're not actually romantically involved, I bet he would have cast me in one of his shows. We even managed to sneak a little kiss in the performance. I tilted her body back ever so slightly, not to be theatrical, but to add some heft to the impression of a couple still in the stormy phase of their relationship. She kissed me back. She didn't have to kiss me back, but she did. No one around there could feel it but me. Is this really part of the performance, I thought? Are you going to be my new daddy? Regina asked me when we got back in the car. Would you like me? I began asking when Sandra interjected. No, honeybean. He's just helping mommy with something. I could see the disappointment in her eyes, her big glistening eyes. Come on in. I have cash in the apartment, she said once we reached their home. Regina asked to be carried up the stairs. It's fine, I'll do it, I said despite Sandra's protest. All right this time, but don't you get used to it. You can climb the stairs on your own, Sandra said. Regina nodded her head, then turned to me, a grin on her face. Smart kid. I put her down as soon as we entered the apartment. Her feet started running before she even touched the ground. She took off towards her room. Honeybean, say hello to Trent, she said. Hello, Perky, Regina yelled over her own shoulder without slowing down. Trent, apparently, was the man that was just getting up from the living room couch to make his way towards us, his hand stretched ahead as if leading the rest of them. Trent Bordeaux, he said, as I grabbed his hand, squeezing it only slightly harder than his squeeze of my hand. Did Sandra not mention me, he asked. probably mistaking the inquisitive look I directed at him with confusion. By that time, Sandra was already at the other side of the living room, digging for cash inside a desk drawer. Did Regina just call you Perky? I asked. He chuckled and explained that he is a voice actor. He voices a character named Perky Porcupine from a children's cartoon with the same name. It was one of Regina's favorites, even before she even met her, Sandra added as she handed me the money. It turns out Trent is her lover. They explained they wanted me for the job because Trent preferred not to make Pedro aware of their relationship for fear of retaliation in the industry. He's been known to be vindictive, Trent said. Wouldn't want to risk my career just as it's taking off. Spoken like a true romantic. I can't stand being manipulated. I should have taken myself out of the situation immediately. I knew it was the right thing to do, but instead I said, "Do you mind if I just say goodbye to Regina?" Sandra approved. "She likes you for some reason," she said. Regina was bashing two misshapen dolls, one with missing hair, one with a missing arm and a leg against each other, making kissing sounds as I entered the room. "Here, take one," she said, handing me the one with no hair. I held it up as she dug up a third doll to add to the kissing mix. "So, what do you think about Perky?" I asked. She stopped making kissing sounds for a moment, contemplating my question. "I don't like him anymore," she said, and when I asked her why, she explained, "Because he hurts Mommy." "Did Perky give you that burn on your cheek?" She nodded and returned to making kissing sounds and mashing the dolls' faces together. That's all I needed to know. But just to be sure, I asked Trent on my way out if I could bum a cigarette. Sure enough, he took a cigarette pack out of his pocket. I only have 3 left," he said. "That should be enough for the drive home," I said as I swept the pack out of his hand. "Thanks," I added. I wasn't as cordial the next time we met. I'm not proud of what I did, but the world is better off without some people. Sandra wanted to hire me to track him down after he didn't come back home from work. I felt bad taking her money. I told her I'll take the case pro bono. I only charge her for the babysitting. We're going to need to get more toys for the office if we're going to babysit children now, Penelope said as she entered the office. "This isn't a daycare, I'm just doing Sandra a favor," I said. "You're charging her," she said. "It's a symbolic amount, so she doesn't feel like she owes me," I explained. "Too bad, that's the most lucrative gig you had this month." It was her first day back at work, and she was already giving me business advice. "What's this?" I asked, pointing at the peculiar lamp she was holding. It was shaped like a cartoon porcupine in which the edges of each spike had a small light bulb on it. "This is your new desk lamp. I got it for free," she said. "This isn't a desk lamp, it looks like a children's light lamp," I said. "Nightlight, sorry," I said. "You get what you pay for," she said. "Sandra brought it. She's outside now, parking the car. They were getting rid of the lamp. Apparently it's not safe for kids." Penelope opened the office door just as Sandra was approaching it, Regina in her arms. She set Regina down, her feet started running before she even touched the ground. She ran straight into my embrace. "Moron," she said. "I told you it's Roman," I said. She giggled. "We have a rapport." "I'll be back to pick her up in 3 hours," Sandra said. "Perky," Regina exclaimed when she saw the new lamp. "Be careful with that, honeybean. You don't want to get burned again." As soon as Penelope went out on her lunch break, Regina turned to me as if she was reading my mind. "I don't want Trent to come back. He's not my daddy. He hurt Mommy," she said, confirming what I already knew. "How did he hurt her?" I asked. "Sometimes he would lock her in the bedroom with him, and I could hear her screaming," she said, her eyes glistening more than usual. "What kind of screams?" I asked. "Happy or sad screaming?" "What's happy screaming?" she asked. Did Mommy lie about the burn? "Who gave you the burn?" I implored. A tear escaped her glistening eye and rolled down her cheek. "Perky," she said. "You mean Trent, right? Not the Perky night lamp, right?" I didn't mean to make her cry, but I guess she was alarmed by my mannerisms. "It's okay, honeybean. Everything is fine. I know Trent gave you that burn, because if he didn't, I just need to hear you say it. Just answer, did Trent burn your cheek?" She nodded her head slightly. At first I wasn't sure if she was answering my question or just mimicking my own animated nodding. "It's all right. You can say yes." "Yes," she whispered. Whew. I sounded an involuntary sigh of relief as I pulled her in for a hug. Thank goodness, I thought. That could have been embarrassing. Thank you.
Well, 5 minutes for a Q&A, so anybody with any questions or comments for Rom?
Quite entertaining. This is very good. I like the variation you're doing of the genre. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. This is great.
Thanks, Rom.